Yo, what's happening? You see? Nietzsche. A genius and a person, I don't get tired of repeating it, who was a human as well. And he had a very huge scope, which means, again, he was not narrowing down, Most scientific people, most impactful people, most people that you know, most people who we give importance to as humanity, they already have a standpoint, and then they start trying to prove it. Going from a standpoint to reasoning down. So, in other words, they take a position and they're not even aware of why they do it. It's just given as a prejudice, actually. And then they try to reason down or reason up to explain why they have this position, while in their perception and communication and delusion, they believe that they start reasoning from zero, and then miraculously they create a philosophy, a narration, a story, a fantasy, a great story about why they are who they are. And I think Nietzsche was different. I think he really he has the power to you see, most people, again, common people, you and me, we have things that we don't like and things that we like. Let me guess. You think consciousness is something very good that you glorify and idealize, and empathy as well. But you think that selfishness and following the lowest drives, selfishness, disregarding everybody, and so on. Being self-absorbed, selfish, defiant, and so on. You think this is all bad. But empathy and consciousness is all good. But Nietzsche has the power to not idealize consciousness or empathy, just as an example. Which means he is attacking the best while finding something good in the worst. Therefore he goes to extremes, and he goes too far with that, okay? So this is the point I want to make. I want to make the point that he makes mistakes. He does things, again, he is having the impact, and this is his genius, that he attacks the things that we think are the truth, the best, the right, the things that we love. He attacks them and destroys them entirely. And then he presents something that we're afraid of, not even aware of, something that we hate, and says, why not put this in the place of the old gods, the old truth? And yes, he goes too far with that. You need to learn that. You need to learn that this is Nietzsche. He is what he is, right? And the same is with consciousness. When he says he connects consciousness to the herd mentality, to the common group, the average people, mediocrity, slave mentality, and so on. So the suffering and the desire to communicate that suffering. So in other words, he puts consciousness, he connects it to communication, the need for communication, and the group mentality of people. And it helps us to get to de-idealize, de-glorify consciousness as the holy grail for super empath. And at the same time, he also sees in empathy huge dangers, because the suffering in the world is infinite, and a lot of good people have gone down, going under, untergehen, have been destroyed, because they had too much mercy and pity, infinite pity and mercy with each and everything. And this means their behavior is completely reactive and controlled by the infinite suffering around them. And of course, the peak, the top of the danger of mercy and pity and empathy is, again, the covert narcissist. Because these people present themselves as children and victims, and when you give them the attention they crave, they use it to backstab you. But this is just the real pathological flip side of that. Even without them, too much pity and mercy brings down everybody to hell, even Jesus. But he rose from that. He is willing to sacrifice everything, because he wants to work beyond himself. And as such, he is the inspiration for Nietzsche's Übermensch. But I'm not here to promote Jesus, I'm not here to promote Nietzsche. I'm here to criticize, because Nietzsche makes further mistakes. So in other words, it's not a mistake that he goes to extremes. It's because he has the big scope and he needs to make a change in the stubborn animal that you are and the stubborn animal that I am. We love to dwell in the comfortable prejudice and split reality of all good and all evil. And he needs to go to extremes to make us change, to make us do the leap of faith, to make us sacrifice, to make us dare to go under, work beyond us, and so on. Therefore, he intentionally makes the mistake to not be too subtle or too careful. He just makes his point with a hammer. However, further mistakes of him, in my opinion, is there is two deers crossing. They just crossed my consciousness and my concentration. Further mistakes that Nietzsche does is that, once again, I remind you, I think he does things intentionally, but we as readers have to be resistant, resilient, and strong enough to only digest what we can digest and save for later what we can't digest today, or even spit out what we can't use at all, what not serves us. And the orientation the North Star of my philosophy and my psychology is always life. What serves life? All right. So now let me get finally to my criticism. That in the case of consciousness and empathy, which are interconnected, I believe, he again connected it to the slave mentality and the herd mentality, mediocrity, and in a way, yeah, he de-idealized these, which is a lot of worth. It carries a lot of worth for your development to question the things that you think are true and worthy. But there is a side of empathy and consciousness that is predatory and therefore could be connected to the powerful, the will to power, and the master morality, if you wish. And Nietzsche also never, Nietzsche oscillated, by the way, and again, in the thing that he was, I don't go deeper on this because I would lose myself now. Therefore, we just go back. So there is a predatory, self-serving, will to power side of empathy and consciousness and communication. Communication is connected to consciousness. So what is this? I believe that empathy, consciousness, and communication rose from the side that Nietzsche stated, from the need to live together, to organize life together, to evade deadly conflict as a social animal that lives in groups. Yes, but it also evolves and independently can evolve in predators and prey alike. Because let's say we have two animals, one is a predator and one is its prey. It's an intellectual battle as well. So if both animals can afford huge brains and brain power, they can use intelligence to compete with each other apart from the physical contest, which is represented in the sharpness of their senses. How good can they hear and see, and how fast can they run, how good can they defend, and so on. It's a physical contest, but it's also an intellectual contest. And it's also a contest of empathy, communication ability, even if they are alone, and empathy, because the hunter, if it is hungry and is looking for prey, it uses the reverse psychology of, if I was my prey, where would I go? What would I do? And the prey, if it's hungry, goes to find food and will ask itself, if I was the predator looking for me, where would I go and how can I evade this? So it's a reverse psychology game between these two species. And this requires to rudimentary extents consciousness, self-reflection, as well as empathy to emphasize with the predator or the prey. And ultimately it even has a taste of love from predator to the prey, or from the prey to the predator. Respect and love even. Sounds insane, is insane, Life is insane. So Nietzsche did not talk about this, okay? So I'm not going further or deeper in this. I'm just leaving something for you to evolve this theory. But I just want to let you know that empathy, consciousness, communication is nothing to be idealized. It has a predatory side as well. And at the same time, selfishness, defiance, indifference, ignorance towards others is not only negative. This is why I emphasize on that you have to integrate narcissism in your personality to deal with narcissists. Because ironically, when you set boundaries, when you stand up for yourself, when you do all the things you need to do to defend yourself, it's, in other words, the narcissist activates your narcissistic defenses. This is, by the way, why gaslighting is so effective. Because you either are a perfect victim, which leads to a dysregulation that is pathologic and cluster B-like, or you stand up aggressively, selfishly, and then they can gaslight you and say, oh, you are the problem, you are the predator, whatever. And this leaves you no chance. You are caught in a competition between a splitting mechanism, and there seems to be no way out, because the narcissist and the psychopath have no way out of this. You look up as a regulated person that is fully healthy and aware of the multitude of life. You're looking from the outside on this pathology, okay? And yeah, just wanted to point this out, right? Just to let you know that this is the reason why the gaslighting is so effective. And the way out of this is to integrate the shadow side and not let it control you, but you need to be aware that you are this, but much, much more than that, okay? Nietzsche can help us to break the split mechanism by de-idealize everything that we value and value everything that we repress, ignore, or even hate. Therefore, become whole, individuated human beings.